welcome to this special edition of A.Books Review. I'm your host, Alistair Book, and with me is local author, artist, composer, musician, and all-round wonderkind, Tony McMillen. Welcome, Tony.
Al, it's a pleasure. I've been wanting to do the show for you don't know how long. This is a total treat. Thank you.
Well, thank you. As some viewers may know, your first novel, Nefarious Twit, was the first book I reviewed for this series, debuting with a debut. What prompted you to write it?
Besides wanting to be on the show, it was the first novel I ever completed that I thought was good enough to be released in the world. But I love children's book authors. I think they're really interesting people because a lot of them don't seem to like children too much, but they seem to write books for kids. And as a young man, Shel Silverstein, the photo of him on the back of the Giving Tree gave me nightmares. So I wanted to kind of give him back a love letter in the form of Nefarious Twit.
But it's not really a book for children, is it?
Absolutely not. Yeah, I've actually had selling the book and being at conventions, I've had many a mother who tried to buy the book for the kid, and I had to talk them out of it. And sometimes I've failed. But I got their money, which is probably the most important thing.
So tell us something about the book, for those that have not yet read it.
Yeah, the book is about a man named Rick Lime. Rick Lime's father was a famous kids book author of the pen name Nefarious Twit. And Rick's father, Nefarious Twit, actually abandoned the family at some point when Rick was a young man. And about 20 or so years later, Rick's mother commits suicide. So Rick decides he wants to find his father and murder him in some sort of retribution for his mother. And along the way, him and his brother are on this kind of drug-soaked quest to get revenge, and their lives start resembling some of his father's kids' books, some of the imaginary stories. And so it's a real surreal, dark trip.
Now, Rick has his own demons, of course. As a bibliophile, I'm rather appalled that one of his faults is that he likes to tear the last page out of books.
I could see someone like yourself having a little bit of a bone to pick with that. Trust me, these books are most of them are library books, which I'm assuming you kind of look down on a little bit yourself. So these books they've been dog-eared and they've been through so many hands and so many eyes on them. Their lives have already been kind of brought to waste. So Rick just doing what the last bit of what God's already done to them.
After your novel came the graphic novel Oblivion Suite, which you didn't illustrate.
Correct.
Tell us something about that.
I was in correspondence with Catalina Ruffin, who's an artist who actually lives in Arlington as well. Super talented, amazing fan of prog rock, and talking to them, I had a project I wanted to do something with them, something about rock and roll, and eventually we kind of got down to we both like prog rock, and Catalina, who's younger than myself, they have an amazing affinity for prog rock, and bigger knowledge than I'll ever have. So eventually we decided we'd do something together, and it kind of became Oblivion Suite. And I don't do a lot of collaborations, so I'm really hard to work with. So I was really happy to find somebody who could tolerate me. I did pay them, but I think there's also a little bit of actual understanding and kindness there.
So describe the story in a sort of overview.
Yeah, Oblivion Suite's about a 70s prog rock band called Figgy Pudding, who basically rose to fame after their lead singer went mad and they kicked him out of the group. And after that, all their subsequent albums and successes have been kind of about him and his madness. And so they get a choice by one of their own characters from one of their songs who appears to them, that if they follow him into a world made of their own music, that they can possibly rescue their old lead singer. And they're kind of faced with the choice of, will we undo our success to save our old friend, or will we keep things the way they are?
A fan of British rock, such as myself, will see the similarity between the main character, Vic Bixby, and Syd Barrett of Pink Floyd. I presume that was deliberate.
Complete coincidence. No, it was big time. I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan, and Syd Barrett has always been a sort of mythical figure throughout rock, and I think it's one of those things where I'm kind of surprised no one else has at least tried to do some sort of analog to him in some sort of story. He's such an amazing figure, and just to have Roger Waters and the rest of the guys in Pink Floyd go on to greater success and have a lot of their best work sort of echo Syd Barrett's life, I think is really tragic, but also really beautiful in a lot of ways. So I just want to tap into that a little bit.
Right, and there are Pink Floyd references throughout the...
Yeah, probably too many. Like it abounds.
I think particularly of their Figgy Pudding's debut album, A Pauper at Play in Dusk's Fluorescent Forest, which is clearly a lampoon of The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, Pink Floyd's debut album.
You're a sharp book. Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I couldn't out Syd Barrett, the album title, so I just tried to do my best tribute to it. But he had such, I mean, Lucifer Sam, there's so many lyrics and song titles that are just amazing. Just the imagination explodes. So I just wanted to do a little tip of the hat to that with that album title.
And I think that worked.
Thank you.
I know of authors who have either a theme or an inside joke running through their works. Both Nefarious Twit and Oblivion Suite have some sort of mind-altering drug. Is this your theme, or are we in for something else?
I don't know if it's definitely starting to become apparent that it might be a theme, but I hope not. I've dabbled in drugs like most good Christian people, but I don't think it's a defining characteristic. But I love fictional things that don't. So I like fictional products. I like fictional institutions and things like that. So I love making up drugs. I love in film and books when there's a drug that doesn't exist in the real world, and I can imagine what it's like to take that substance, and I just love dabbling in that. So the next book will actually have another new fictional drug in it, but I guess that might, now that I'm listening to myself, it might be my theme, which is pretty sad.
So what is your next book?
It's going to be called An Augmented Fourth, I believe.
You believe you don't know the title of your own book?
Actually, I'm talking to the publisher, and he's not strong-arming me, but he's like, maybe a different title. And I was like, I love this title. I actually wrote him a really nicely worded, but like, it's sort of an argument going, this is why I think this book is actually, should be called Augmented Fourth. I have a runner-up title, which is okay, but I think Augmented Fourth is the way to go.
So what is the book about?
It's going to be a heavy metal horror novella. So it's sort of like if John Carpenter's The Thing was about Black Sabbath. So the idea is our lead character's name is Codger Burton. Codger Burton is the bass player for Frivolous Black, who in this world are basically what are Black Sabbath. They are the original heavy metal band that kind of rose to prominence, and basically the book takes place in 1980 after they've ousted their lead singer, and they've got a new lead singer, an American guy, and the bass player Codger kind of hates this guy and hates his life, and he's stuck in a hotel. He's snowed in, and there's three other people in the hotel, and one of them isn't human. One of them is some sort of creature. And so it's a rumination on heavy metal and rock and roll, and also identity and weird occult kind of stuff.
And when will it be available?
They're telling me 2017, the summer of. So, it's a winter book about snow and being really cold. It's going to be coming out in the summer, which is kind of fun in a way, but that's what I've been told.
So it's written, completed?
I have 4 drafts done. There's probably going to be a 5th draft, but after that, hopefully we get it. Hopefully, Jesus God.
So what about Lumen and Higher Climbs the Fire?
Ooh, done your homework. All right.
Talk about those briefly.
Sure thing. Lumen's going to be really weird and fun. Lumen, the idea is to do, I loved, as a kid, I liked video games, and the game Zelda in particular had a really cool illustrated instructional manual, which to me, as a little boy, it was even better than the game in some ways. There's great pictures and little snippets of story. So what I want to do is do an illustrated instructional manual for a video game that does not exist. And so I invented this game called Lumen. And there's also going to be a backstory about this fictional system that the game came on, which is called the Hallucinatory Game System. And there's some sort of dicey history where the system might have made children go mad while playing it. So it's going to be a retrospective illustrated manual about a game that does not exist and a game company which did not exist that also made kids go crazy. And now that I've written the story for Lumen, I think I'm going to probably do an actual book or comic book about the story because I'm really in love with the story.
And Higher Climbs the Fire?
Oh, that's my, that is potentially maybe my personal favorite thing I've worked on that I have not finished yet, but I'm really excited about. It's going to be a huge, sweeping science fiction novel that's also about folk singers and my love letter to Bob Dylan. And the idea is the main character is named Mal Leatherberry, and Mal, she is a folk singer in a world where music's sort of outlawed, and there's sort of a totalitarian church in charge of everything. And so it's sort of, the way I'm writing it, it's almost like if Mark Twain did Dune. It's really bonkers, and if I do it right, it'll be beautiful. If I don't, it's going to be a mess. But
So we'll never hear anything more about it?
Probably, yeah.
You were at Boston Comic Con with Bad Kids Press.
Correct.
I think we have some video of you sketching. What were you working on?
Yeah, actually, that was, I love Bad Kids Press, and I love being Boston Comic Con. And so right there, I'm basically just doing, I like to do little sketches and kind of whatever pops in my head. And a lot of them were creatures, and also I just think for ladies in like Victorian age dress, I just think it's really elegant and kind of powerful looking. So I did a lot of that stuff. But people would always ask me for requests, and most of them I had to say no, not to be a jerk. I'm really not good at doing things on the spot. So unless it was Spider-Man or Batman or the Ninja Turtles, I couldn't draw anything they wanted me to draw. So I just drew them Victorian ladies and monsters.
You work in ink, and you create these stylized nightmarish creatures. There has to be a story behind that.
I think the story is simply I tend to like spooky stuff, and I actually, even my lines, they just tend to kind of be creepy and weird, but I think there's sort of I'm going for an elegant, macabre thing where even though it's kind of crepuscular and weird, it's supposed to have a sort of beauty, a weird mixture of beauty and ugliness.
Your characters certainly look tortured.
Thank you. I think that's what I'm going for.
Good, good. Viewers can see more of your artwork on your blog, tonymcmillen.wordpress.com. I follow your blog.
Mighty kind of you, thank you.
Speaking of your blog, recently you made mention of working out ideas for your upcoming project, Lumen. Should we just follow your blog for updates, or can you give us some more information?
I'll give you a little insider action because I really like what you're doing. So the idea of Lumen is going to be that there is a world which is in perpetual darkness, and it's an artificial darkness created by what people said they call it the burning beast, which is basically a falling star that hit this planet centuries ago. And you find out later in the story, it's actually a sentient star that somehow evolves to have sentience, and it perpetuates itself by basically sending out spores throughout the universe. So anyways, in this world of perpetual darkness, there's a boy named Esteban Vela, and he finds this suit of armor and a lantern that he can house a falling star in that's sort of alive. And he does battle with crazy angular men, sort of like the fish that are deep underwater. And it's this really crazy story that was supposed to be a video game, very simple, and now it's got this own mythos. I'm really kind of in love with it, which is self-serving, but it's true.
Changing topic somewhat. Back in July, you performed at Comikaze in Somerville. So we had a graphic novel author / artist performing music at a comic book store. How did that come about?
It's a typical occurrence in this city. It's this crazy wackadoo world. But I know the owners, and I paid them money. But also they were open to me. I used to be in a band called Bicycle Fight. We were huge, and all 300 of our fans were clamoring for me to do a show of solo material. And it's been years, and I got the itch again. I decided I wasn't too old and ghastly to not be on stage, so I decided to have a kind of a comeback show.
So I was there. My favorite song is Hurry Up and Get to the Chorus, which you said, and I quote, "My whole writing thing distilled into a song." Care to elaborate?
Yeah, I'll say that what I'm trying to say is hurry up and get to the chorus. In my mind, whatever I do, I try not to waste anyone's time. And that doesn't mean it has to be, they're all short songs, they're all short books, but I just try to get to the essence of things. And if I go off on a tangent in my work, I try to make it worth your while. That's a really fun aside or something that eventually feeds back into the theme. So hurry up and get to the chorus is me just saying, like, in some songs, you really just want to get to the part where it really hits you hard.
Let's have a listen, shall we?
hear. You say you want a song, one you can't feel. Well, I found a melody, don't get ahead of me, it's gonna haunt your ear. My perfect melody of your tragedy, here let me make things clear. Hurry up and get to the chorus. Hurry up and get to the chorus. Because all I wanna hear is the apologizing here. All I wanna hear is the apologizing here. Anytime I could write a few words and look clever, any other lucky sucker could sing them real nice and sound pleasant. Yeah, then here's the thing about verses, they have different versions and nobody cares. The other thing about verses, without a few rehearsals, they can't be shared. Oh, hurry up and get to the chorus. Hurry up and get to the chorus. Because all I wanna hear is apologizing here. All I wanna hear is apologizing here. All I wanna hear is apologizing here. All I wanna hear is apologizing here.
So what are your musical influences, and how would you describe your style?
In a very self-deprecating way. I love like mid-60s and 70s rock and almost every variation. I grew up on The Who and The Doors and even Zeppelin, but also a later day, I grew up in the 90s too, so I like a lot of 90s rock. Honestly, if it has a guitar, and especially if it has somebody who's not a technically good singer, but they have a personality behind their voice, I really am drawn towards it. Love Patti Smith, I love Bob Dylan.
I was going to say, it sounded Dylan-esque.
Thank you, I think, yeah.
And since he's just won a Nobel for Literature, that's a high compliment. I think we have time for another song. This is Palm Trees.
try and stay the night. We both be gone by the morning light. You were never mine. You were never mine. You were never mine. You were never mine. Oh,
This is more in the style of your typical whiny 90s music. Tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, my my 90s Britpop influences showing, me trying to be Liam Gallagher and failing miserably.
Sometimes I think Liam Gallagher failed as well.
But not untrue.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about all we have time for. Thank you for joining me, Tony.
It was a blast. Are you kidding me? Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to reading your next book, An Augmented Fourth, or whatever it gets to be called when it's finally published.
Fair enough.
For A.Books Review, I'm Alistair Book. Good night.
Nefarious Twit is a writer known for his first and last books. Like the protagonists in both books, he leaves his family to find out where the ladder will lead him. But this story isn't about him. No, this is the story of his abandoned son, Rick, who is on a quest to kill him. Joining Rick on this journey is his younger half-brother, Lou. Now, one thing you have to know about Rick and Lou is that they are long-time addicts of a psychotropic ADHD drug that had originally been given to them by their mother, a woman who would later commit suicide, so that she could cope. Lou often gives in to the urgings of the pair of alien beings only he can see, and Rick, feeling the need to look after Lou, keeps cleaning up his messes, or at least helping him run away from them. The relationship between Rick and Lou is reminiscent of that of George and Lenny in Of Mice and Men, and that is all I am saying on this matter, lest I give anything away. At the start of each chapter, the narrator informs the reader what to expect, such as how important a digression is, or how disturbing the upcoming scene will be. However, after the first disturbing chapter, I found the others not so bad, as I began to sympathise with Rick and accept Lou as he does. What I enjoyed most about the book was the author's intertwining of Nefarious Twit's storylines and Dargmanian mythology into the tale of Rick Twit, all of which is enhanced by Tony's 14 illustrations that give a glimpse into the sketchy world of The Ladder. A romp through a dark, drug-altered perception of reality, Nefarious Twit is well worth climbing the ladder to find where will this lead me.
Oblivion Suite, written by Tony McMillen and illustrated by Catalina Ruffin. Not just the title of the latest album by progressive rock group Figgy Pudding, Oblivion Suite is the realm from which ideas come. As founding member Vic Bixby slips into a drug overdose-induced coma, the three remaining band members have to face the meaning of their lyrics in order to navigate through that world of ideas to save Vic. A swift kick in the pants to remind these bickering musicians with diverging creative directions that their success depends on them working together. The first thing that strikes the reader is the similarity between the fictitious Vic Bixby and the real-life Syd Barrett of Pink Floyd. It therefore becomes no surprise that Pink Floyd lyrics are sprinkled throughout this graphic novel. Although word dense, in some places the dialogue gets so packed in the print gets rather small, Ms. Ruffin's black and white with grey wash illustrations provide a space for that dialogue to play. There is little variation in letter weight or size to suggest tone, which I didn't really notice, since the characters' expressions conveyed their emotions well. Delving into just where creativity comes from, Oblivion Suite substitutes one consciousness for another with a clever twist. For A.Books review, I'm Alistair Book. Good night.